Thank you very much. Actually, Reverend Dr. Kathy Ann Lewis has got 2 doctorates from our organization. She has a Doctor of Divinity and she has a Doctor of Religious Science. They're the highest awards that our organization gives. So there you have it. She's got a paradox. The first service thought that was funnier. Actually, I love Dr. Kathy Ann. I love learning from her. She's known in our movement for her deep mysticism, and she's not going to take anything on the surface. She's going to make you go deeper. Have you had that experience with her? She's going to disturb you until you go deeper. I love that, and I was thinking about her when I was reading this book about the hidden teachings of the Hermetic philosophy. It's called the Kabbalion. It's about the key ideas of Hermes, a very well-known figure, probably from Egypt, whose teachings influenced every major religion. That's what they say. He's a legendary spiritual teacher. And it's presented as secret, hidden teachings. In other words, deeper than the surface. Hidden from the common knowledge. Well, you know what the problem with common knowledge is. It's common. And when something is common and it's believed by many, many people, often it can be the case that it gets set, it gets stuck, and we might even stop thinking about it and stop questioning about it. There's a danger when that happens, when something gets stuck in the group consciousness. Things can stay on the surface and be so superficial. The way it shows up in our culture these days is people will say, I Googled it, so it must be so. Or I saw it on Facebook, right? So it must be real. No going beyond the first page of results in the search. People can get caught by that. I know I did. I found this article online about something that the Pope said, and because it was on the internet, I stopped thinking. I stopped questioning it. Turns out it was a fake site. It was a parody, but I based a whole Sunday service on it. Ooh, yeah. Didn't take the trouble to go deeper and do the research. My grandmother used to say, Edward, if it's too good to be true, yeah, you had the same grandmother. Yeah. She also used to say, Edward, a little bit of knowledge is dangerous. Yeah, I understand that now. I was speaking to a friend of mine in the food industry, and we were discussing those mandolin graters, those. And she said, on the surface, it's a super handy, useful tool. But if you don't know how to use it properly, and if you're not willing to go deeper with the knowledge and read the manual, and if you're not wearing protective gloves, that's when you get diced fingers with the carrots. Yeah. On the surface, it looks easy to use, but there's a deeper knowledge. Or another example, like over-the-counter pain medication. Just this June this year, I went on a long bicycle ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles, 545 miles for the AIDS Life Cycle organization to raise funds for people who are dealing with HIV and AIDS. And my partner Kevin and I, we rode together, and it was so interesting to see every 20 miles there's a rest stop and there's a medical team there, and we could watch the riders at the medical team popping ibuprofen, because you need it. Things get achy. But the downside of not knowing what the daily maximum dosage is that it can cause more trouble than it can relieve. And you could see the riders lying to the doctors at the stops. The doctors would say, have you had any today? And they're going, no, because they wanted the relief, right? They're not going below the surface. And one of the doctors explained to me that the number one cause of ulcers today in the advanced age community is over-the-counter pain relief medication taken incorrectly too much on an empty stomach. Oh, we want our relief. Now, surface knowledge is the obvious knowledge. It will make me feel better. The hidden knowledge is deeper. And it seems hidden because it's not common. It's not in the mainstream. And sometimes we come upon the deeper knowledge when we are ready for it, when we are willing to go for it and go deeper. But sometimes we even come upon the deeper knowledge before we are ready for it. And if we do, we might even scorn it or attack the messenger. What do you mean I can't have another pill? I'm a religious scientist. What do you mean I can't have it all? I just say an affirmation. What do you mean there are consequences for greed? Anyway, this book, The Kabbalion, it's talking about the people, the teachers like Dr. Kathy Ann, who are teaching this deeper knowledge. And it says, these people have never sought popular approval, nor numbers of followers. They are indifferent to these things, for they know how few there are in each generation who are ready for the truth, or who would even recognize it if it was presented to them. Oh, I like that. It made me think of our own movement, our tradition, Centers for Spiritual Living. In all the time that we've been around, we really haven't grown. We're about the same size as we've always been. And I think because we aren't mainstream, we appeal to a fringe market. You realize you're a fringe element. Because what we teach doesn't really answer the call, the need of the popular approval. I'm thinking of a teacher of mine who once said, Edward, at the Center for Spiritual Living, we have more questions than we have answers. And that's not good in the popular culture because people want answers. They don't want ambiguity or paradox, but that's what we've got. Oh, there's a strong inclination to get things black and white, to go with the flow, to stop thinking and to go with the obvious surface answers, to stay with the first page of results in the search, just as long as it relieves my pain. I don't want to have to think about it. I saw a meme on the internet, and because it's on the internet, it must be true. It goes like this. Only dead fish go with the flow. Oh, and people who go against the flow, can you think of examples? Oh, they can sometimes get themselves into trouble, especially if the masses have latched onto an idea and it's so set in the consciousness of society, especially if it relieves discomfort. Oh, it's very dangerous to question that kind of idea. There are ideas in our time that we're not allowed to question. Take for existence, to question the existence of God. See how quiet the room went? Where's he going to go with this? Is it safe? Is it permitted? Oh, that's why I love my atheist friends, because I want to be disturbed in the places where I think I'm sure. It's okay. Or how about questioning the personality of the Western God and asking, is that appropriate for people in 2015? Or how about to question teachings that advocate violence, discrimination, hatred? See, there are certain sacred cows you're not allowed to talk about. You're not allowed to talk about certain things, but I love to do that. To the common culture, questions like this are irritating, but for those who are ready for them, it's like water. Water when you're in the desert or when you're on the top of the first 6,000 feet climb on your bicycle. You like that tie back? So the question I want to ask frequently of myself is, where do I need to go deeper? Or where have I stopped thinking? Because it's so hard to grow when we are asleep, or when we are not thinking, or when we disallow questions. It's very hard to grow. From the book I've been reading, The Kabbalion, teachers of hidden knowledge reserve the strong meat for adults, while others furnish the milk for babies. They reserve their pearls of wisdom for the few elect who recognize their value, instead of casting them before the materialistic, vulgar swine and mix them with their disgusting mental food. I love that. I mean, I couldn't get away with saying that, but I love that because I can sure think of some examples of beautiful teachings that have been taken and trampled in the mud and been turned into something that they were probably not intended to be. Can you? One evening on this AIDS Life Cycle ride, the program director told us a story about a woman who serves at the local rest stop. She told how 14 years ago this woman's son, who was living elsewhere, came home to the small town to be with his family because he was HIV positive and had received a diagnosis of AIDS and was dying. And he came home to be with his family, but when his mother heard of his condition, she rejected him based on her religious upbringing and sent him away. Now, I'm not even going to say what religion it is. It doesn't matter. The story is that based on her religious understanding at the time, she sent him away and he died alone. Then when the AIDS Life Cycle, 2,500 cyclists cycled through her town, she was outraged. She hated it. And every year she watched as they came through. First from inside her house, then the next year a little bit closer to the window, and then the next year on her porch. And she watched these people coming by. And then the next year on the sidewalk, till eventually she started to volunteer to serve food at the rest stops. And she came and told the director in a kind of confession, she said, you know, I've had a change of heart. And it is some relief to me to think that possibly my son had the support of people like this community when he was dying. You see, she had to go way deeper than what she had been taught. And it took her 10 years. Now, it's such a reminder to me, you know, if I settle for the surface knowledge of what I've been taught, or the surface knowledge of the mob, and if I stop thinking and if I just go with the flow, I might hurt myself and I might hurt people I love dearly. And it takes courage to say no to the mainstream culture. Here's what the book says, and keep in mind, this is 1908. And the spirit of persecution has not yet died out in the land. There are certain teachings which, if publicly taught, would bring down upon the teachers a great cry of scorn and revilement from the multitude, who would again raise the cry of crucify. Now, don't you want to know exactly what are those teachings? Well, they would be so familiar to you. The teachings of the unity of mind, the creativity of thought, the dual unity and complexity, the paradoxes. It's all stuff you have heard from Dr. Kathy Ann. But it's not for everybody, because it requires a tremendous amount of responsibility. And there is a great cry from the multitude. We call the multitude group mind. And in group mind are these commonly accepted, unquestioned ideas that are fiercely defended. Can you think of examples? I can give you one. But don't get mad at me. Here's a good example. Christmas. Oh, that is such a mush of traditions, just all sewn together. And the thing is, it's not even biblical. And in many cases, it is obscenely commercial. And not only that, but it has displaced the truly important holy day of Christianity, which is Easter. I'm glad 3 people knew. But none of that matters to the group mind, because the sentimentality of Christmas, it's like over-the-counter pain relief. And I want it, and I'm going to get it. I don't care what it means or where it comes from, and you better be ready for an avalanche if you question it. Because if you start thinking about it, the whole thing crumbles. All right, I'll give you another example. That one wasn't popular. Here's another example of a well-held idea that is fiercely defended. How to pray. Oh. Well, I had an example of questioning prayer on the ride on one of the nights before a particularly difficult route we were going to go on the next morning. The director had us all in the room, and she said to us, "Now I want you to pray for good weather." I thought to myself, really? I wonder what that means. I mean, was she expecting us to get into our little tents and put our hands together and actually appeal to God for better weather? And I wonder if she did, or if anybody did, because the weather was bad. And I thought to myself, oh, you're overthinking this, Edward. Maybe it's just a figure of speech. It's just the way we talk. Or maybe it was more of a wish of us being together. You know, let's all hope for good weather. And maybe it's just an expression, but what use is that? There is a mainstream common knowledge idea about prayer that is all mixed up like Christmas is all mixed up. The prayer idea is all mixed up with wishing and hoping and asking and requesting and appealing and thanking. Oh, but there is a deeper knowledge, a more hidden teaching you got to go the extra mile for about how prayer works. And this way is not similar to the other. But it's so difficult to stop the former if you've been trained in it since a baby. I was. And it comes right back. In the moment when danger appears, bam. For example, on the ride, there is this clinic. It's a butt clinic. Well, because you can imagine if you're hundreds of miles on a seat, chafing happens. So at the butt clinic, I discovered they have this amazing night cream with topical pain reliever. Oh my gosh, I was so grateful to get some of that. You can sleep at night. And then I found out they also have a day cream. And I thought to myself, I want some of that. I really do. So I went in the morning to go and get my little lotion of day cream. I thought they would just be handing it out like they did in the evening, but oh no, they did not. The doctor said, "Come this way," and led me into a little tent and said the words I dreaded to hear. "Place your elbows on the table and drop your bike shorts." and I looked around like my cat does when it's time to close the door and lock him inside. Where's the door? How do I get out? How do I get out? How do I get out? And straight away, my voice in my head started to say, oh, please, God, don't let this happen. Don't let this happen. I'll be good. I'm sorry for everything I've ever done. But God did not answer my prayers. The doctor did, with a little bit of day cream. You see, I've learned to go deeper than that prayer at the center. I've learned a way to pray. It's called spiritual mind treatment, and I've learned that I've had to go deeper than what I learned as a child. I've had to give up some security blankets. I've had to slay some sacred cows, and it's not been easy because some of it lingers, And this new form of prayer, I've learned, it is not characterized by begging or asking or bargaining or negotiating or hoping or passion or deserving or needing or thanking. It's an art. There's a hidden teaching, and it's not for everyone. Some people are not ready. They cling to the sentimentality of beseeching. It is so popular that you can't touch it. That's what I'm going to be talking about in this afternoon's workshop. I'm going to be sacrificing 2 common sacred cows of prayer. Now, our founder wrote about this way of prayer. Do you know who our founder is? Oh, thank you. This is what he wrote on page 339 of The Science of Mind. We should be careful to distinguish daydreaming and wistful wishing from really dynamic and creative prayer. When we treat, we do not wish, we know. We do not dream, we state. We do not hope, we accept. We do not pray, we announce. We do not expect something is going to happen. We believe that it has already happened. This deeper way of prayer is characterized by this knowing or this focus. It's called attention. Focus on inner state. Looking for the secret place of the Most High, the peace within and dwelling in it. On the ride, we go through from San Francisco to California, some beautiful landscape, amazing hills. And we also go through some very dangerous territory. And if you are a beginner like I am, you have to concentrate on what is important. You can't be distracted by the beauty. Have you ever been distracted by the beauty? And you can't be distracted by the perceived danger. Have you ever been distracted by the perceived danger? Because both distractions will take you away from the task at hand, which is to call your attention quietly back each moment to what is directly ahead of you. And that's what spiritual mind treatment is. You have to focus repeatedly, gently, on the silence, the peace within, from where comes our help, and gently remove our focus from the perceived danger or the thing that is flaring up or the beauty that is distracting us. There were a few unfortunate spills on the ride in June. My partner, Kevin, he hit a hole in the ground. He was going downhill about 20 miles an hour. It was a freak accident. He just hit a bad spot in the road. But I was ahead of him, and I watched everything in my rearview mirror. I watched him hit the hole, and I watched his bike go up, and I watched him go over the handlebars, and I watched the bike crash before him, and I watched him hit the ground. Bam. And I didn't start begging God. I went deep quickly because I remembered. Begging is not what I have been trained to do now. No. See, fortunately, what I had learned kicked in a different way. So instead of saying, oh God, oh please God, instead of that, I looked inwardly immediately for that peace that passes understanding, even while at the same time quickly and efficiently stopping, returning to where he was. Even while all the people were gathered around him doing what their work was to do, I was doing my inner work, quietly, serenely, focused inwardly. I was not asking God for a favor because, in my opinion, that is about as beneficial as wishing for good weather. I was accepting in my mind an image of wholeness and health and ease. And when I say accepted, I don't mean desperately. That's not the character of what I learned. No, I was dropping urgency. I was dropping fear, and I had to go exactly against my instinct to beg and panic. That would be going with the flow, because that is the popular way. I had to abandon the common practice of my youth. No. Did it make any difference that I did so? Who is to say? It could just be a string of coincidences and luck that caused things to work out as they did. After all, right behind us, the person just behind us at the time of the fall was a high-level trauma nurse. Right behind us. And within seconds, the paramedics were there. And they quickly established that he was fine. And then they recommended to us, which they should have, that we go to the ER room, go to the emergency room to check for fractures. The ER room, I said in my mind, oh no, and there goes my mind, into panic. No, God, please don't make us go through. I know. Stop. And I remembered in a moment, no, that is not the character of what I've learned. That is like begging for good weather. I had to come back to accepting an image of peace and ease. Did it make any difference? Who's to say? Could be a string of coincidences or good luck that caused things to flow the way that they did. Drove straight to the ER room, no delays. We were admitted immediately, no delays. We were seen immediately, no delays. And right after we were seen, the ER room became filled up with people. And they found no broken bones, just a really intensely bruised and aching butt. And they sent us home. And as we left, I looked at the clock and said, 10 p.m. And my mind went again, oh no, we have to put the tent up in the dark. We need calories for. I said, stop. Come back. That's not the character of what I've learned over here. I had to regularly bring my mind back. Did it make any difference? Who's to say? When we got back, somebody had put up our tent. One of the roadies from the Santa Rosa Center, who turns out he was a practitioner, and he let us know he was treating for us too. And when we got to the tent, the emergency medics had saved food aside for us. And there, the lovely doctor who had patched up my butt earlier was there to welcome us and say how well we had done. You know, the next day, the last day, we only had 50 miles to go to complete the ride, but it was really clear that Kevin was not going to be able to do it. So I stayed behind to help him. And we both admit we felt a bit of sadness as we watched the riders go off on their last 50 miles. Oh, we were so close. And in the morning, we went to go and get our bikes to check on them in the holding area where the support vehicles had picked up all of the bikes that were, for whatever reason, not going to complete the ride. And on the seat of every bike, there was a plastic egg attached with a rubber band with a note inside, like a fortune cookie. And mine said, "You have touched the lives of countless people you will never know." So inspiring Now, apparently, the person who did that has been doing that for 20 years, taking the time in the dark of night to go to that holding area for bikes who are not going to make it, and to give encouragement to those who might be facing disappointment, because they're still part of the success. I think last year we raised $17 million to touch the lives of people we may never meet. Something beautiful about that. Well, Kevin and I are going back next year. We're going to finish that ride. And so are 8 people from the Center for Spiritual Living Santa Rosa. And we're going to do that in 2016. And each one of us has to raise $3,000. And it's exciting to think that that work that we are doing is going to supplement a need in the world. To be part of a world that works for everyone is exhilarating. And if you want to know how to sponsor me, just come and talk to me afterwards, I'll tell you. But back to the sacred cows of prayers. Oh, I'm so glad I learned how to sacrifice them. That's what I'm going to do this afternoon. We're going to sacrifice 2 in particular, because sacred cows can get in the way of deeper knowledge. I would invite you to come and join me this afternoon, but it's going to be gruesome. And so if there's anything else you could do, I suggest you do that. Because you wouldn't want to give up long-held ideas about how you should pray. Let us pray now. I invite you to breathe in with me. As you exhale, let your eyes close if you feel that's comfortable to do. As we take a moment to turn within to find that place of peace within, the peace that passes understanding. That place within is our consciousness, where we are connected to the peace of the universe. It is the source from whence comes all of our help. It is the Lord of our being, the Lord of our life, the law of our spirituality. And we declare it. My good comes from within. That is the Lord of my life. And as we sit together in this realization, we get clear on who we are. My mind is a center of divine activity within the mind of creation itself. The Creator is flowing out into form through the filter of my mind and my clearly held thoughts. I don't even hold them with struggle. I think them. I let flow into my consciousness a thought of wholeness, of wellness, of cooperation and collaboration, compassion. And I don't even have to produce any of it. It comes from where it is. I lift up my mind, I lift up my consciousness to look up into greater possibility, freedom, and joy. And the spiritual energy that is spirit flows through me. Oh, it is so good that it is so.